The 12 apostles of Jesus Christ emerged from humble origins, being fishermen, peasants, and artisans. These simple men, each with their own unique biblical stories, left everything to follow Jesus and witness his resurrection, dedicating their lives to biblical teachings. They were called to spread the gospel throughout the world, facing countless adversities and challenges along the way. The determination of these apostles is a powerful testimony to the unwavering faith they nurtured on their journeys. Despite the great mission they had, the apostles did not escape difficulties. They faced severe persecution and, in many cases, martyrdom because of their faith and commitment to the Bible. The biblical stories of the apostles show incredible loyalty to Jesus, even in the face of extreme human cruelty. Their deaths were not common, and each of them is shrouded in mystery, controversy, and macabre narratives, keeping the flame of their devotion and biblical teachings alive. The deaths of the 12 apostles are a dark and intriguing chapter in the story of the Bible. None of them met a natural death. Each had a tragic but deeply meaningful end. These martyrdoms are poignant testimony to unwavering loyalty and the extreme cruelty that humanity can inflict on his fellow man. The apostles' sacrifice highlights the intensity of their faith and the profound impact of biblical teachings on their lives. The biblical stories about the deaths of the apostles are shrouded in mystery and controversy. Macabre and symbolic stories, often transmitted by Christian tradition, lead us to reflect on the spiritual strength of these men. These narratives show us that their death was more than an end. It was a final testimony of their devotion to Jesus. And it is in this scenario that the figure of John, the beloved apostle, emerges with a particularly fascinating story. John, the beloved apostle, is a central and enigmatic figure in biblical stories. Son of Zebedee and Salome, and brother of James, John enjoyed a special relationship with Jesus, often being referred to as the disciple whom Jesus loved. He was present at crucial moments, such as the Transfiguration and the Last Supper, where his closeness to the Master revealed a unique spiritual sensitivity. His life is a profound testimony to biblical teachings, demonstrating the importance of devotion and unconditional love. John not only witnessed the ascension of Christ, but also played a vital role in the early Christian community in Jerusalem. He was a crucial link between the apostles, helping to maintain unity and spread the gospel. The depth of his spiritual understanding made him a respected and influential figure. But John's story doesn't end here. His persecutions and exiles reveal to us even more about his incredible journey of faith and resilience. John's journey was not without trials. During the reign of Emperor Domitian, he faced severe persecution due to his tireless preaching of the gospel in Ephesus. Captured and tortured, John was thrown into a cauldron of boiling oil, but miraculously emerged unharmed, an event that further strengthened the faith of the early Christians. This miracle, reported in biblical stories and church traditions, is a vivid example of divine protection over those who follow biblical teachings with fervor and dedication. After this miracle, John was exiled to the island of Patmos, a place of seclusion and suffering. It was there that he received the apocalyptic visions recorded in the book of Revelation, which are a rich source of biblical teachings and symbolism. Even in the midst of adversity, John continued to be a light for the faithful, sharing his revelations and strengthening the faith of the Christian community. His death, according to tradition, occurred naturally in Ephesus, a rare destination among the apostles, but his life and legacy endure as a beacon of hope and resilience. James, son of Zebedee, stood out as one of Jesus' closest apostles, present at significant moments such as the Transfiguration, the resurrection of Jairus' daughter, and Jesus' agony in Gethsemane. He, along with his brother John and Peter, formed Jesus' inner circle, receiving biblical teachings and witnessing miracles that only a few could see. The importance of James in the biblical stories reveals the trust and love that Jesus placed in him, making him an essential figure in the dissemination of the gospel. This special closeness to Jesus not only enriched him spiritually, but also prepared him to face enormous challenges after the Master's ascension. James' presence in the most sacred and intense moments of Jesus' life made him a pillar in the Christian community. His influence and leadership were fundamental to the solidification of the Christian faith. However, James' path was also marked by a tragic end, the result of his unwavering dedication to biblical teachings. The death of James, son of Zebedee, was a dramatic and significant episode in biblical stories. As recorded in the Acts of the Apostles, James was executed on the orders of Herod Agrippa I, becoming the first apostle to be martyred. His execution, whether by decapitation or piercing with a sword, symbolizes the supreme sacrifice in the name of faith and the propagation of biblical teachings. This cruel act was intended to silence the growing influence of Christianity, but, paradoxically, it further strengthened the faith of the early Christians. The narrative of his death highlights the intensity of the persecution faced by the apostles and the cruelty that humanity can inflict on its fellow human beings. However, James' courage and unwavering faith serve as a powerful example of devotion. The story of his death is a constant reminder of the price of faith and the importance of holding fast to the principles taught by Jesus. And so, the life of James echoes as an eternal testimony, preparing us to explore the story of another James, the son of Alphaeus. James, son of Alphaeus, is a less prominent figure in biblical stories compared to other apostles. Although his presence in the Gospels is more discreet, his contribution to the expansion of the gospel is undeniable. He, like the other apostles, heeded Jesus' call and dedicated his life to biblical teachings, playing a vital role in spreading the Christian faith. His actions, although less visible, were crucial for strengthening the early Christian community. Christian tradition suggests that James, son of Alphaeus, carried out missions in less documented regions, contributing significantly to the spread of Jesus' teachings. Despite the scarcity of details about his post-resurrection activities, we know that his life was marked by devotion and courage. James, son of Alphaeus, is proof that, even without great notoriety, the impact of his work reverberates through the ages, showing that each apostle, with their unique biblical stories, played an essential role in the growth of the Christian faith. The death of James, son of Alphaeus, is shrouded in mystery and uncertainty, reflecting the complexity of biblical stories. Various Christian traditions narrate different versions of his martyrdom, with some sources suggesting that he was beheaded on the orders of Herod Agrippa I, as was his namesake, James, son of Zebedee. Other traditions hold that he was thrown from the pinnacle of the temple in Jerusalem and stoned to death, a brutal form of execution that highlights the cruelty faced by early Christians. Regardless of the version, the martyrdom of James, son of Alphaeus, highlights the brutality of the persecution suffered by the apostles and the deep devotion they had to biblical teachings. His death serves as a solemn reminder of the courage and sacrifice required to keep the flame of the Christian faith alive. Thus, the story of James, son of Alphaeus, prepares us to learn more about Peter, a central and unavoidable figure in biblical stories. Peter, originally known as Simon, was a simple fisherman from Bethsaida in Galilee, until Jesus called him to become a fisher of men. His transformation is one of the most inspiring biblical stories, going from an ordinary man to a fervent and courageous leader. Jesus renamed Simon Peter, which means rock, symbolizing the solidity and strength he would demonstrate in his faith. He was the first to recognize Jesus as the Christ, the Son of the living God, a declaration that profoundly marked his life and mission. Throughout the Gospels, Peter is portrayed as a fervent disciple, often impulsive but always dedicated to biblical teachings. He witnessed incredible miracles such as walking on water and was highlighted as leader of the apostles. His denial of Jesus during his arrest is a remarkable episode, followed by deep repentance and restoration by Christ himself. Peter played a central role in spreading the gospel, especially among the Gentiles, consolidating its position as one of the pillars of the Christian faith. But his journey was far from over, as he would face even greater challenges. Peter's story is marked by his courage and unwavering dedication to biblical teachings, but also by a series of intense persecutions. After Jesus' death, Peter assumed leadership of the Christian community in Rome, becoming a beacon of hope and guidance. However, this position also placed him directly in the crosshairs of the Roman authorities. In 64 AD, a great fire devastated Rome, and Emperor Nero, looking for a scapegoat, blamed the Christians, beginning a fierce persecution. Peter was arrested and sentenced to death, a fate he accepted with humility and faith. According to tradition, Peter asked to be crucified upside down, as he did not consider himself worthy to die in the same way as his master, Jesus. His death on Vatican Hill, where today's majestic St. Peter's Basilica stands, is a powerful testimony to his faith and devotion. This ultimate sacrifice not only sealed his legacy, but also strengthened the faith of early Christians, showing that biblical teachings were something worth living and dying for. And so, Peter's narrative leads us to explore the life of another apostle, Judas Thaddeus. Judas Thaddeus, also known as Lebeu Thaddeus or Judas, son of James, is one of the least mentioned apostles in biblical stories, but his contribution to Christianity is significant. During the Last Supper, Judas Thaddeus asked Jesus a question that demonstrated his genuine desire to understand the mysteries of the kingdom of heaven. This quest for spiritual understanding is a testament to his dedication to biblical teachings and the spread of the gospel. After Jesus' death, Judas Thaddeus continued his mission, preaching the gospel mainly in the regions of Mesopotamia and Persia. He is recognized as the author of a brief but powerful epistle in the New Testament, where he exhorts believers to remain firm in the faith and practice brotherly love. His life is an example of faith and perseverance, and he is venerated as the patron saint of lost and desperate causes, symbolizing hope and resilience even in the most difficult situations. The death of Judas Thaddeus is shrouded in mystery, with different Christian traditions offering varying accounts of his martyrdom. One of the most common narratives suggests that he was martyred along with Simon the Zealot, being stoned to death. Another version indicates that Judas Thaddeus was killed by axes, a brutal execution that reflects the extreme violence faced by early Christians. Regardless of the exact manner of his death, Judas Thaddeus' sacrifice is a powerful testimony to his dedication and loyalty to biblical teachings. Judas Thaddeus' courage in facing death for the gospel serves as an inspiring example for all Christians. His life and martyrdom highlight the importance of remaining firm in faith, even in the face of relentless persecution. Thus, the legacy of Judas Thaddeus continues to be a source of strength and hope, reminding us of the price of faith and the promise of redemption. Now we move on to learn about the life of Andrew, one of the first apostles called by Jesus. Andrew, brother of Simon Peter, was one of the first apostles called by Jesus. As a fisherman in Bethsaida, Galilee, Andrew was used to a simple life, but his journey was transformed when he encountered Jesus. He is often remembered in biblical stories for his closeness to the Master and for being present at crucial moments, such as the multiplication of the loaves and fishes, where he presented a young man with 5 loaves and 2 fish, showing his faith in divine providence. His importance is evident, being consistently mentioned among the first in the list of the 12 apostles. After the death of Jesus, Andrew devoted himself fervently to the propagation of Christianity. His missions took him to several regions, including Scotland and Greece, where he is traditionally considered the founder of the Church of Constantinople. Andres' devotion and zeal for biblical teachings drove him to face dangers and challenges in the name of the gospel. His life is a vibrant testimony of faith and action, inspiring generations of Christians to follow his example of commitment and courage. Andrew's death, like that of many of the apostles, was marked by martyrdom and brutality. According to Christian tradition, he was crucified in Patras, Greece, but his crucifixion had a distinct peculiarity. It was carried out on an X-shaped cross, which would later become known as the Cross of St. Andrew. Before his crucifixion, Andre would have been severely flogged, showing the resistance and unshakable faith that he maintained until the end. His choice to be crucified in this way reflects his humility and the deep respect he had for Jesus. Andres' legacy is kept alive not only by biblical stories, but also by Christian traditions and symbols that continue to inspire the faithful. The X-shaped cross not only symbolizes his martyrdom, but also represents his unwavering dedication to biblical teachings. His ultimate sacrifice strengthened the faith of the Christian community and continues to be a powerful reminder of the courage it takes to live and die for faith. And now let's explore the life of Philip, another dedicated apostle who faced similar challenges. Philip, originally from Bethsaida, the same city as Peter and Andrew, is often remembered in biblical stories for his immediate willingness to follow Jesus. His call to discipleship was direct, and he promptly brought Nathanael, also known as Bartholomew, to meet Jesus, showing his zeal for sharing biblical teachings. Philip is often associated with moments of faith and doubt, as when Jesus challenged him to find a solution to feed the crowd, revealing both human logic and miraculous divine providence. In the Gospels, Philip appears on several important occasions, always seeking to understand and disseminate the teachings of Jesus. His interaction with Jesus during the multiplication of the loaves is particularly notable, demonstrating how faith can be tested and strengthened in times of need. Philip, through his actions and questions, exemplifies the journey of a dedicated follower who constantly seeks to deepen his spiritual understanding. His mission, however, did not end with the life of Jesus, but continued with even greater challenges. Philip's death, like that of many other apostles, is marked by a tragic and violent ending. According to church traditions, Philip was crucified and stoned in Hierapolis, Asia Minor, around the year 80 AD. During Emperor Domitian's persecutions of Christians, he faced brutal torture before meeting his final fate. This martyrdom highlights the cruelty that early Christians faced and the depth of their faith in biblical teachings, which gave them the strength to face such horrors. Philip's courage in facing death is a powerful testimony to his unwavering dedication to spreading the gospel. His life and death exemplify the supreme sacrifice in the name of faith and the divine mission he embraced from the moment he was called by Jesus. Philip's legacy continues to inspire and strengthen the faith of many, reminding us of the importance of remaining firm and courageous in our beliefs. Now we turn our gaze to Simon the Zealot, whose fervent actions and tragic fate also left an indelible mark on Christian history. Simon, known as the Zealot, is one of the apostles whose story in the Bible is marked by a unique identity and a fervent commitment to his principles. The title Zealot suggests a possible affiliation with the political religious group of Zealots who were known for their fervent dedication to Israel's independence and opposition to Roman rule. This association implies that before meeting Jesus, Simon possessed an intense nationalist zeal. His encounter with Jesus transformed this passion into a deep commitment to biblical teachings and the spread of the gospel. Simon's story is a powerful reminder of how encountering Jesus can redirect even the most intense passions toward a greater divine purpose. Although there are not many details about his specific activities in the Gospels, his designation as zealot indicates a strong and decisive character. Simon's life, marked by the conversion from a nationalist fervor to a spiritual fervor, shows us how biblical teachings can transform lives in profound and unexpected ways. And so, he becomes a living example of the powerful transformation that faith can bring. Accounts of the death of Simon the Zealot are scarce and often conflicting, but they all reflect the intensity and brutality of the persecutions of the first Christians. According to tradition, Simon faced a horrible death, being cruelly tortured. Some accounts suggest that he was flayed alive and later sawn in half, a fate that highlights the extreme cruelty the apostles endured for their faith. This brutal martyrdom underscores Simon's unwavering devotion to biblical teachings and his determination to spread the gospel, even in the face of certain death. The story of Simon the Zealot is a powerful reminder of the price many of Christ's early followers paid for their faith. His martyrdom was not in vain. He became a symbol of resistance and courage for persecuted Christians around the world. Simon's transformation from a fervent zealot to a devoted apostle, culminating in his final sacrifice, inspires everyone to remain steadfast in faith regardless of adversity. Now we move on to meet Bartholomew, whose missions and sacrifices also left an indelible mark on the history of the Bible. Bartholomew, also known as Nathanael, is remembered in biblical stories for his integrity and faith. When Philip introduced him to Jesus, the Master hailed him as a man without falsehood, recognizing his sincerity and pure heart. Bartholomew responded to Jesus' call with enthusiasm and dedication, becoming one of the 12 apostles. After Jesus' death and resurrection, he ventured into distant missions, taking biblical teachings to lands such as India and Armenia, where he converted many to Christianity, demonstrating the depth of his faith and commitment. Bartholomew's dedication to his mission is an inspiring example of how biblical teachings can transform lives and cultures. In his travels, he faced many challenges, but his unwavering faith and message of love and redemption touched the hearts of many. Stories from their missions highlight their ability to communicate Christian principles in ways that resonate deeply with people, showing that the gospel transcends cultural and linguistic barriers. However, his dedication also led him to face the wrath of pagan rulers, setting the stage for his tragic end. Bartholomew's death, as reported in Christian traditions, is one of the most terrible and brutal among the apostles. According to some accounts, he was flayed alive before being crucified upside down in Armenia on the orders of King Astyages. This form of execution, in addition to being extremely painful, was intended to serve as a warning to other Christians about the consequences of following biblical teachings. Bartholomew's unshakable faith, even in the face of such suffering, highlights his extraordinary courage and devotion. This brutal martyrdom of Bartholomew not only underscores the cruelty faced by early Christians, but also serves as a powerful testimony to their faith and dedication. His willingness to endure such a horrible death without renouncing his faith inspires believers to hold their own faith firm, regardless of the circumstances. Bartholomew's story reminds us that true devotion to biblical teachings can require extreme sacrifices. And now, we turn to the life of Matthew, the tax collector turned apostle, whose journey is also deeply inspiring. Matthew, also known as Levi, was a tax collector in Capernaum before being called by Jesus. This profession placed him in a position that was often disdained by society, as tax collectors were often associated with corruption and treason. However, Matthew's life changed drastically when he answered Jesus' call, abandoning his old life to follow biblical teachings. His transformation from a tax collector to a devout apostle is one of the most powerful biblical stories of redemption and change. After his conversion, Matthew dedicated himself to spreading the gospel, being especially known for writing one of the 4 canonical Gospels of the New Testament. His gospel is a rich source of biblical teachings and details the life and teachings of Jesus with depth and clarity. Matthew's contribution goes beyond his words. He exemplified the change possible through faith, demonstrating that anyone, regardless of their background, can find redemption and purpose in the teachings of Christ. His life is living proof that faith can transform even the most hardened hearts. Christian traditions regarding Matthew's death are varied, but all agree that he met a violent end due to his dedication to biblical teachings. One of the most accepted narratives states that Matthew was martyred in the city of Nadab, in Ethiopia, while celebrating Mass. He was reportedly killed by the sword, a fate that underscores the constant danger the apostles faced as they spread the gospel. This final sacrifice of Matthew highlights his unshakable faith and his willingness to die for what he believed. Matthew's martyrdom serves as a powerful testimony to the courage and devotion required to follow Jesus' teachings. His life and death are remembered as an example of transformation and sacrifice, inspiring the faithful to keep their faith firm, regardless of adversity. Matthew's story reminds us that the paths of faith may be difficult, but the spiritual reward is immeasurable. And now, we turn our attention to Thomas, whose doubts and eventual firm faith offer profound lessons about belief and redemption. Thomas, also known as Thomas Didymus or Thomas the Twin, is one of the apostles best known for his sincerity and hesitation in believing in extraordinary events. His fame comes mainly from the episode in which, after Jesus' resurrection, he expressed his doubts, saying that he would only believe by touching Christ's wounds. This skepticism earned him the epithet, Thomas the Unbeliever. But it also offered a unique opportunity to demonstrate a profound lesson from biblical teachings on faith and doubt. When Jesus appeared to Thomas and invited him to touch his wounds, Thomas' transformation was immediate and profound. He exclaimed, "My Lord and my God," showing a radical shift from skepticism to fervent faith. This episode is often cited in biblical stories as proof of Jesus' mercy and the importance of overcoming doubts to achieve genuine belief. Thomas's journey is a powerful reminder that questioning can be part of the path to deeper, more solid faith. Christian traditions report that Thomas, after the resurrection of Jesus, undertook an evangelizing mission in India, where he is credited as the founder of the Christian Church of St. Thomas. His preaching and conversion of many to Christianity in a distant land demonstrate his dedication and courage in disseminating biblical teachings. However, his mission also placed him in great danger, culminating in his martyrdom. According to tradition, Thomas was killed by spears in Chennai, India. While proclaiming the Christian faith, Thomas' martyrdom is a testimony to the extreme dedication and sacrifice that the apostles made in the name of faith. His brutal death reflects the hostility early Christian missionaries faced, but also the resilience and lasting impact of their efforts. Thomas' courage in facing death, without renouncing the teachings of Jesus, continues to inspire Christians around the world. Now let's explore the tragic story of Judas Iscariot, whose betrayal and remorse left an indelible mark on the biblical narrative. Judas Iscariot is a name that resonates with weight and infamy in biblical stories, being known as the apostle who betrayed Jesus. Born in the city of Kerioth, he became one of the 12 chosen by Jesus, sharing the same calling and purpose as his companions. However, his name was marked by betrayal during the Last Supper, where, moved by Satan, Judas handed Jesus over to the religious authorities for 30 pieces of silver. This act of betrayal is one of the most well-known and tragic episodes in biblical teachings, highlighting the complexity of human motivations and the devastating consequences of deviating from the path of faith. The reasons that led Judas to betray Jesus remain the subject of speculation and debate. Some suggest disillusionment with the spiritual nature of Jesus' kingdom, while others point to financial motives or evil influences. After the betrayal, Judas was consumed by remorse, trying to return the 30 pieces of silver to the religious leaders. Unable to bear the guilt, he took his own life, a tragic ending that underlines the gravity of his actions. The story of Judas Iscariot is a solemn reminder of the dangers of betrayal and repentance unaccompanied by hope and forgiveness. The death of Judas Iscariot is narrated with variations in the New Testament, but all versions converge on a tragic ending. According to the Gospel of Matthew, after betraying Jesus and feeling deep remorse, Judas tried to return the 30 pieces of silver, but the religious leaders refused. In despair, he threw the coins into the temple and went out to hang himself. This final act of despair and intense remorse is one of the darkest episodes in the biblical stories, highlighting the crushing weight of guilt and betrayal. In the book of the Acts of the Apostles, there is a slightly different description, where it is said that Judas, when he fell, had his body ruptured, spilling his entrails in a field bought with the money from the betrayal, known as the Field of Blood. Both narratives, although different in detail, emphasize the tragic end of Judas and the severity of the consequences of his actions. The story of Judas Iscariot serves as a powerful warning about the dangers of despair and the importance of sincere repentance. For more fascinating biblical stories and valuable lessons, subscribe to the channel, leave a like and a comment with your feedback.